Hi, welcome back to the podcast, HOA Hell. I'm your host, Michael Kushner, and with me as always is Senior Associate from MBK Chapman, Sam Kill. Sam, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Today, Sam, we're doing something we've never done before. We are having a guest or two guests join us, but they aren't in studio, hence the headphones.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about a subject that we covered, actually one of our cases that we covered just a couple weeks ago. But there's been some developments, so that's why we're doing it today. I'll put some links in the description for everybody with some of the national news that this story has made, as well as a fact sheet that I wrote recently and that last episode where we talked about this case. And in a few minutes, we'll introduce our guests, and that will be Amy and Chris Cooke.
Yeah.
And then we'll ask them some questions, and then that'll be that, okay? In the meantime, I want to tell you what we did yesterday because I think it matters. On behalf of Amy and Chris, we sent the HOA's lawyer a formal demand for ADR, which is the mediation step that the Davis-Sterling Act requires before we take a case like this to court. And in that letter, we laid out exactly why the HOA is going to lose. So here's the case in 2 sentences. Civil Code 4705 gives a homeowner an almost absolute right to fly the American flag on their own property or on their exclusive use common area. And the only exception is a genuine health or safety threat, which nobody's even tried to claim as to their normal-sized fabric flag. So the entire dispute comes down to one other question. Is the Cooke's garage door frame, which is where the flag is, their exclusive use common area? And the answer, under the HOA's own recorded CC&Rs, is yes. Now, the HOA says that the door frame is general common area, and it's not the Cooke's exclusive use common area. But Section 1.11 of their own CC&Rs lists door frames that serve one unit and sit outside that unit's boundary as exclusive use common area. A garage door frame serves one home and sits outside. Civil Code 4145 says the same thing. The HOA's lawyer quoted both of those and then argued for the opposite of what they actually say. And the HOA's fallback is that, well, we paint the trim, so it must be ours. But courts have rejected that argument, holding that who maintains a component doesn't decide whether the component is regular common area or exclusive use common area. Now, what we asked for in the letter is simple. Withdraw the violation, acknowledge that the Cooke's can fly their flag whenever they want, fix the policy to match what their CC&Rs say, and cover the Cooke's fees up to this point. And joining us right now are Chris and Amy Cooke. Folks, can you hear us?
Yes. Hi, Mike.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, morning, guys.
We're doing great. Thanks for having us.
Good to see you again. I'm glad you guys are able to join us this morning. I appreciate it very much. Let me first, just to bring some people up to speed, how long have you guys lived in this community? And when did you first put up your American flag?
We moved here in 2001. We put up our flag initially, pretty much when we moved in. We've been proud American flag flyers for our entire lives.
Good. Okay, very good.
That's fantastic. You guys, where exactly is the flag located?
It's located on our garage door frame, just in front of our garage door.
So if you're facing the garage, it's my recollection is to the left, right at the side there on the frame. Is that right?
Right.
Okay, good. And talk to me, and I know that a lot of the news outlets have asked you this question, and I think it's important, which is why I think it's a great question. What does flying that flag mean to you personally? Let's start with Chris.
So initially, my grandfather fought in World War II, and he was killed in the Philippines in 1944, 1 month after my mother was born. So we've always honored him in that regard with the American flag. We also honor all of those who have served and died for our country. We find it very, very important to continue to show our gratitude towards them by flying our flag proudly.
And Amy, I assume that you echo those sentiments, right?
Yes, absolutely. I have ancestors that fought in the Revolutionary War all the way back to almost every single war there ever was. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us do. So the idea that not having a flag around is just absurd to me.
Right. And a lot of people, and I would count myself included, I put up a flag on July 4th, Veterans Day, Memorial Day.
I do as well.
But I don't fly it year round. But you guys do. You guys have, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Now, just for everybody that's out there right now, I do want to say that the right to fly the American flag is protected both by state law and specifically in the Davis-Sterling Act, Civil Code 4705.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also protected by federal law. So we're not just talking about a couple that wants to fly their flag and an HOA saying no flag. In doing what the HOA in this case has done is that they're completely ignoring federal and state law.
Oh, yeah.
Just ignoring it.
All right. Well, thank you guys, and we all appreciate those sentiments. So here's another follow up for you guys. Can you take us back to the day you first received this notice from the HOA and what went through your minds?
And just for the audience, just so you know, they've had this flag up for about 25 years, and it was only a couple of years ago that the trouble started.
Right.
And I think that's what he's asking you, is to take us back to 2 years ago. Kind of what happened, and walk us through what happened from 2 years ago all the way to last week.
Okay. Well, first of all, as we've said, the flag's been there for 20 years or so. And somebody decided they wanted to fly their Padres flag. And the HOA called them out on it. And then that person started, analyzing freedom of speech and all of this. And then the HOA decided to hyper-analyze the entire thing and said, well, if we allow the American flag, then we have to allow all flags.
Well, hold on. Let me interrupt you for a second. I'll let you talk again, because that's actually, we've never talked about this, but I quoted Civil Code 4705, which protects the right to fly the American flag. But 4710 is another statute in the Davis-Sterling Act that specifically protects a homeowner's right to fly any other non-commercial flag they want. Padres, Dodgers, POW, or their favorite, Mickey Mouse, whatever.
Right.
As long as it's not a commercial flag and it's 15 square yard or 15 square feet. Size limitation, the HOA can't even stop that Padres flag. But I'm sorry for interrupting. Go back to what you were saying. So this kerfuffle started when the HOA illegally tried to control this guy's Padres flag. You live in San Diego, that seems natural, Padres, right? All right, sorry to interrupt. Go on.
No, it's okay. And so they started hyper-analyzing this thing, and then they started overthinking, then the entire community is going to be flag flying. We're going to have BLM flags and rainbow flags, and we're going to have all this provocative things going on, and they just shut it down. This has never been a problem in this community, and we've, as you know, we've lived here for a really long time. There's been six American flags and a Chargers flag on game day and a Padres flag during season. That is it.
That's not very much,
That is it. So this attack wasn't about what they're saying it's about, but so they hyperanalyzed that and said no flags. And I said, well, you can say whatever you want. I know what the law is, and I'm going to continue to fly my flag. So I did. They would send us letters, and I would tell them exactly what you told them. They would ignore me. It would on and on and on. And finally, they said, we're going to paint the entire community. And then after that, you're going to have to move your flag. And I again said, whatever. And I didn't even remove the flag when they painted. I took it down when the guys were here, and I put it right back up at night.
Once the paint dried,
yeah. So then we got, right after the painting project was done, we got this letter saying, take it down. And I said, no, again, and this is why, again, this is 2 years of this harassment, and this is what I'm feeling right now.
Were these communications coming to you from a mix of the manager and the HOA's attorney, or just the attorney or board members? How was it coming to you?
Well, the warnings were coming from the management company, but intermittently, I actually took it upon myself to write to the attorney.
Okay.
He was being quoted as saying things that I know no educated person would say. And as far as I know, it takes a lot of education to be an attorney. So I was thinking maybe he was getting quoted wrongly.
Right.
So I sent him letters saying, what is going on here? And he would just write back, I'll let them know.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what was going on there, but it all seemed very fishy. And so when we finally got this letter, they warned me. I said no. Then they sent me the fine, and that's when I reached out to the media. And it was right before the 4th of July. And I don't know if that was strategic or just stupid.
Both, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not just the 4th of July this year. This was the 250th anniversary. It was kind of a big deal.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And at some point you ran across either one of my articles or my podcast and reached out to us. Do you remember which one that was?
It was a written thing I saw on the internet.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's one of our fact sheets then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to prepare a flag related or a banner related fact sheet the last couple of years right before July 4th, just because it's topical. That's when a lot of people, myself included, will put up their flags, and that's kind of where you get pushback.
Right.
But so you guys reached out to us, and then by that time you were being inundated by media, not only local media, your local San Diego channels, but also national media, from TMZ and Fox News to Newsmax. And then a few other, even some of the more liberal news channels reached out as well. And you made appearances. I appeared with you on a couple of those, but you made several on your own. Did a great job. And what happened? So yesterday is the day that we served, or we sent, our very formal ADR demand out, and the HOA's got its 30 days to make a response, and I sent it to the attorney. So we'll see what happens. But in the 25 years or so, I think you said 20, but it's 25, I think. But in the 25 years approximately that your flag has been up, prior to 2 years ago, did any of your neighbors ever complain about the flag? Were they ever bothered by it?
Nobody came to me personally, and the only thing I ever saw was support. So, but the board was telling us that other people wanted to fly other flags and couldn't understand why they couldn't.
Exactly, because the law says they can.
I told them that too. So I don't know.
I know. I saw some of your correspondence where you actually were trying to educate the board by citing not only Section 4705 but also 4710. You did your homework and you were trying to educate them, but they just looked at you as a rube or something, and we're going to do what we want. Or they were getting really bad advice from their attorney. It's got to be one or the other. Or they're ignoring their attorney entirely.
Yeah.
It's got to be something. Go ahead,
and
Sam.
we see that that's not too uncommon.
Well, we see that. Sam and I see that a lot. We see both. We see really bad HOA lawyers who are telling their clients what they want to hear because they don't want to get fired. Or we see HOAs that just completely ignore their attorney's advice, which is kind of silly because you're paying them for that advice. Sam,
so you guys, did the HOA ever tell you guys before a few months ago that the matter was either dropped or placed on hold? Any of that?
Oh yeah, several times. When the very first policy they put out, there was uproar. So they called a meeting at the pool where a bunch of people showed up, and it turned into a yelling match. It was very dysfunctional.
It's not what they wanted.
The president ended up in tears. And that didn't really do much, but she promised to put everything on hold, stop everything, and then they just sat on it.
In fact, didn't the president write you a letter or email and tell you, we are not taking any action against you until further notice, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, only for you to later get a demand for you to appear at a hearing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is what this HOA does. And this is why I wrote to them and recap the meeting, because there's promises made. It's gaslighting 100%. This is not the only issue I've been gaslit on.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wrote them and said, I want to, reiterate that you promised this, this, and this. She then wrote back and said, yes.
Right.
And here we are.
Oh, gee, I think what it indicates, though, Sam, tell me if you agree. I think what it indicates is this HOA says things to try to appease at the moment without any real understanding or direction that they where they need to be heading. They're just kind of acting.
That's exactly right. To me, that's emblematic of them being disorganized. They're not on the same page. There's misalignment, and then they're putting a bunch of stopgap measures and band-aids on serious issues such as this.
Or I think that's true. Or it's very possible that they're getting, you've got some people on the board that are saying one thing, who have their own personal feelings. Like we don't want any flags up because it causes bad feelings, and we just want peace and quiet and that sort of thing. And then you have maybe management companies saying something and the attorney saying something else. That could also be part of the problem, is they don't know who to be listening to.
That could be a function of them kind of revealing or telegraphing their own inherent biases or sentiments on those issues too.
And confusion.
Yeah.
And confusion. And the thing is, in addition to kind of stringing the Cookes along during this entire time period, they also published they published a new rule, let's say in 2024. And that's currently the rule at issue, because they were going to amend even that rule when it didn't work out, but they never actually implemented the new rule. But then in the meantime, they keep issuing statements, public statements. There was one that I saw from 2024, and it was, for those who watched my prior episode on this, I actually put that up on the screen. The message that came from the HOA back in October of 24 regarding kind of a summary of their position, which was completely wrong on the law. And then you have ones that come out from the lawyer, and one came out from management, and they keep slightly changing their minds as to what's driving this. In fact, am I right, Amy or Chris? First they were calling where your flag was one thing, and when that didn't work, they tried changing it up and saying, well, no, really, it's this. Tell us about that.
Yeah, they called it trim, then they're calling it fascia, which it's neither. It's a door frame.
Yeah.
But that doesn't fit what they want. So
exactly.
They had to keep changing it.
Yeah, and then finally you get this long letter, 3-page, but you get this letter from the HOA's attorney, or no, not you, but everybody. All the homeowners get this letter from the HOA's attorney with the quote-unquote official position of the HOA. And that letter was dated July 14th of 2025. Yeah. And in that letter, he very logically, and I'm using that in quotes, air quotes for people listening, he very logically goes through all the governing documents to support his position. In my letter, I went through every section that he quoted to explain how he completely either misstated or misread, depending on your perspective, the very governing documents he was quoting. The very governing document sections he brought up actually support the Cookes' position, hands down. No dispute. Hands down.
It does. I actually wrote him, when I got it, I wrote him and thanked him.
Yeah.
I said, thank you for supporting our position.
But he didn't he didn't put it that way. In his letter, he was like, here's why you guys are wrong. And he was citing these sections, and he's just not reading them right. Yeah. He also attributed, in his letter, he ignored so there was a particularly long sentence in the CC&Rs, in section 1.11 of the CC&Rs, that has two different qualifiers. He went and pointed to the first qualifier to attach to the second set of conditions. You can't do that. You're selectively choosing. Yeah. That's not how English works.
Just because you methodically go through those provisions is not the end of the analysis.
Yeah, you need to actually read them properly and grammatically. Yeah. Let me ask you this. I think we've hinted at this, but why do you think suddenly this came to a head? If you have it, I mean, obviously you're guessing. We can't possibly know, but if you have any ideas, I'd be curious.
Logically, I don't have an explanation for that other than it's some kind of personal bias against the American flag.
How about you, Chris?
Oh,
I'm sorry, Amy. Go ahead. There's a slight delay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Finish what you were saying.
I mean, why you would drag this out for so long in the first place is just doesn't make any sense. So I really don't know. Yeah, it's got to be some kind of personal bias. That's all I can say. I don't know.
Chris?
I believe they were waiting for the opportunity to, under the guise of we're repainting the complex to, and I hate to sound paranoid or like they're singling us out, but it's all far too convenient. They were waiting for the opportunity to say, okay, we painted, you take down your hardware, you're done, we win. And when that didn't happen, and Amy was very, very diligent about making sure that flag came down at 7:30 in the morning when the painters were here, and it went right back up at 4:30 when they were packing their stuff. To make sure that everyone knew that the flag was not going anywhere, that we were merely pulling it down as a courtesy to the painters so that they could get around it.
Let me just, you wanted to be clear that everyone knew that the flag was still there.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And again, folks, we shouldn't even be having this discussion. Civil Code 4705 is crystal clear about the right of every California citizen, and in particular, we're talking about homeowners and HOAs, to fly the American flag either on their own property or on their exclusive use common area. Now, we spoke a minute ago. We were in speaking with the two of these guys. We spoke a minute ago about where that flag's been flying. Yeah. And the HOA, as Amy said, has switched their theory a few times. There can be no dispute if you look at any picture of exactly where this flag is flying, that this is the garage door frame surrounding the garage. Oh, yeah. And there can't be a dispute under the plain language of the CC&Rs that door frames, and by the way, under 47, under the Davis-Sterling Act as well, in defining what exclusive use common area was. Yeah. And there can be, there can't be any dispute as to this big exclusive use common area. It's just right there in black and white. Oh, yeah. And yet this HOA has persisted, and then this came to a head recently. And again, we're guessing as to why. But
I mean, so much pivoting, and I think both Amy and Chris are exactly right. I mean, to me, as someone who's seen this in practice and across various issues, I totally see Amy's point in terms of the bias, the pretext. I see Chris's point in terms of them using this opportunity in connection with the repaint in an effort to reset the whole thing and kind of negate the long-standing history and
it's
their
kind
usage.
of cowardly if you think about it, because they took the path of least resistance, or they thought they took the path of least resistance by we've got to paint, and obviously things have to come down to paint,
or being opportunistic, right? I mean, and capitalizing on that most people would probably not push back, but kudos and credit to the Cooks and standing their ground.
Well, that's what it takes, right? It takes brave people who are willing to put their money where their mouth is to protect their rights.
And how fitting, given the 250th.
That leads to my next question. Did it occur to you when this came to a head very recently that it happened to coincide with 250, or was that something you guys kind of thought about later? I mean, go ahead.
When they called the hearing on June 30th, I immediately connected it.
Oh, all right.
And I'm like, okay, June 30th, July 4th.
Hey, within days. Yeah.
5 days. Yeah.
And I don't want us to overlook this hearing that they had where they again doubled down on the fact that it's a common area. And they said, this is already been established as common area. They verbalize that, and then this survey that they're going to put out.
Well, let's get to the survey in a second. Hold on. Tell me about the hearing.
Well, we got called to the hearing, and they said, okay, no hearing, because they had massive media pressure at that point.
Oh, interesting.
And we all got called, and they said, we just want to tell you that we're not going to give you a fine.
Well, hold on. You showed up for this scheduled hearing. And at that hearing, they said, we'd rather continue this. And you refused. You said, no, do it now.
Yeah, it's been continued for years.
Yeah.
I finally get this hearing, and then they're like, no, this is very stressful. I don't want to keep dragging this out.
Yeah. They didn't like all the attention.
No, of course not. Our entire house is all over the media. I mean, we got to do what we got to do to get this done, and I'm going to do whatever it is. But that whole thing was very stressful for everybody involved.
So this hearing was had, quote unquote, such as it is. They just double down. They don't concede anything, even though they're just dead wrong.
Yeah.
And then, and this kind of leads to the next thing. Just to remind everybody, under Civil Code 5855, the HOA has 14 days to give a homeowner the results of a hearing. And the HOA, in this case, abided by 5855 by sending in on the end of the 2-week period, sent the Cookes a letter. Tell me about that letter and what was so funny about it. Because I laughed when you sent it to me. I laughed. Tell us about that.
In front of me, the first letter was like, I don't even know what they were saying.
Well, hold on. I'll tell you what. Let me interrupt. I'm going to go ahead and put that letter up on the screen. Okay. For those who are watching, they're going to be able to see it. So I'm going to put it up on the screen right now for a few seconds for you to take a look at it. And then those of you who are listening, Amy's going to kind of describe what the letter said. Go ahead, Amy.
So the first letter was a description of...
No, I'm just talking about the post-hearing letter is the only one we're talking about right now.
Okay, yeah. The post-hearing letter said, thank you for resolving the issue, which I had no idea what they were talking about. My flag's still flying. It's never going to not fly.
Well, it went further than that. They said, you have already resolved the issue, so we don't need to proceed. In other words, it was saying, it implied very strongly, you took the flag down, so therefore...
Yeah, it's moot.
It's moot.
Yeah.
You never did.
And then they put a Zoom link, as if there was some kind of meeting that was going to happen, but no date, no time. So I don't know what that was all about. Then shortly thereafter, they sent me 3 post-hearing letters.
Okay.
All which are, I don't know what they're doing over there.
But basically,
you know what they're doing over there.
No, but basically they said, we decided not to fine you.
Oh yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
however,
not drop the issue, but not drop the issue.
Right. And that's my however. They haven't said, we're not going to fine you, and we've rethought our position and taken a look at the governing documents more closely and realized that the law is not on our side. So you're free to do what you want with respect to your American flag being where it is. No, they just said, well, we've elected this time not to fine you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that also leads into this, and I pretty sure I know the answer, but just for our audience benefit, did you at any point consider taking the flag down just to make the whole thing stop, and
peace?
And if not, what made you decide not to do that?
Well, no, at no time were we ever going to take the flag down, and because we don't have to.
Yeah.
You know, on top of all the other reasons that we fly the flag,
it's a good answer.
The law is on our side. I'm not going to just let people run over me.
Right.
Especially in HOA, people dying for our country, and the HOA says I can't fly my flag. What kind of person would take their flag down? I don't know.
Yeah, and the thing is as both of you and Chris, eloquently put it earlier on, in this particular case, the flag means something very personal to you, and you're going to be damned if you're going to take it down when it means so much to you, and quite frankly, it's not hurting anyone. And on top of all that, the law protects your right to do that for the very reason that you're doing it. And it's amazing to me, if you would have told me back in the 80s, let's say when I was, in 1985, when I was 15, if you would have said to me that in 40 years or so, you're going to represent somebody where their HOA, assuming I knew what an HOA was at the time, I can't remember if I did in 85, but when their HOA has banned them from flying their American flag, I would have said, I don't see that ever happening. That's kind of dumb. Let's talk about reality. It's amazing.
It's almost dystopian.
and at some point during this whole kerfuffle, you brought our firm in, and yesterday is when I sent your formal, pretty lengthy letter to the HOA's lawyer. And that's kind of the beginning of our declaration of war, because we're not going to let this go. On your behalf, we're going to fight this all the way. So either the HOA is going to voluntarily follow the law and capitulate to the very reasonable demands that we made, which is just follow the law.
Yeah.
Or the HOA is going to be forced to do it, and that's just going to be more expensive for everybody that lives there.
Yep.
Let me ask you this, just to kind of close things up. What would you say to other homeowners whose HOAs are threatening them with fines or peer pressure by making them out to be troublemakers in their communities for flying the American flag?
I would just say stand your ground. This issue is too important. We have it's a very, the state of the world, the nation today is very polarized, and it doesn't make any sense. The reason people can walk around saying I hate America is because we're in America.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. And listen, that's a big deal. And thank you guys for joining us. I really appreciate it. Yeah. It was good to hear from you. Obviously, we'll do follow-ups and kind of keep everybody informed as to what's going on. What we're fighting here is nothing political at all. Mm-hmm. There's no politics here.
Right.
What we're fighting for is a homeowner's right to fly their American flag. But it might as well also be, and obviously for different reasons, the right to fly your Padres flag, or the right to fly your they were talking about some of these, what was it, March Madness or whatever, right?
Yeah.
People have a right to fly their non-commercial flags. Mm-hmm. The American flag has a special place in the pantheon of American history, but HOAs already have so much authority, but they don't have authority to do this.
The over-policing, over-regulating of
Exactly.
something this important, of such symbolic significance too,
Right.
is a heightened problem.
And for those out there, if you live in an HOA that is behaving the way the Cooks' HOA is behaving, give us a call at MBK Chapman, because we're pretty good at holding HOAs accountable, not only to their members, but to the law as well. If you like this episode, please hit the like button. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel, HOA Hell. If you'd like to leave a question, please do so. Until next time, please have a wonderful day.